Hey guys, welcome back to the sawmill. It's a nice bright sunny day today. Started off a little chilly, but it's warming up fast. We also just had our time change in this time zone anyways to give us an extra hour of daylight, and I'm loving that. Means you can stay outside later at night before it gets dark, and you can just tell the sun's getting up higher in the sky this time of year. It's a lot brighter during the day, and you just generally get that sense that spring and summer's coming. A lot of the ice in here's melted away now, so that's good. And not to say that we can't get another blast of winter, but I think it's a losing battle for that going forward, so that gets me excited. Like the title says in the video, today I'm going to be trying my first attempt at quarter sawing. Everything I've done up to this point on the mill, I've owned this mill, the Woodland Mills HM126, for about 8 months, and everything that I've done so far has just been plain sawing, just getting to know it. I've never owned a sawmill before, so I didn't really know anything about cutting lumber, and I think for the most part I will continue plain sawing. Quarter sawing, something that's, from what I've researched, is most commonly done with oak and maybe maple. I don't even have any oak here on our property, but we do have some maple, so I could try that. But what I'm actually going to be using today is cherry. Cherry's not something that I think is commonly quarter sawn, but that's what I have in here, and I just had the itch to give it a try something new, try to learn something. So that's what I'm going to be using. Also, the logs I have aren't too huge. I read because of the way that the wood comes off quarter sawn lumber, you waste a bit more, so it's nice if you have some pretty big logs. But the ones I have, they're decent but not huge. But I'm just gonna throw one up on the mill here and attempt to get it going. Maybe I'll show you a little diagram that I made up here, just my own personal little cheat sheet of what I'm going to be going off of. And I drew myself a diagram. There's a few different techniques that people use. I'm sure they're all good, or maybe some are good, some are bad, but for now I'm going to start with one of the ways I saw, and that's so basically, if you have your, this is kind of just my little sketch. If you have your log, you split it into 4 quarters. I guess that's why it's called quarter sawing. And then the idea is to get your grain running vertical along the length of the board you're cutting. So I'm hoping that you can kind of see, I drew little rings to represent the rings of the tree. And so if you cut your first board, you'd have to separate it into 4 quarters, and then if you cut your first board here, you'll see the grains running vertical this way. Then you have to spin the log and flip the log on the mill so that it would be sitting like this on the mill when you do a pass, and then the grain on this board would be running vertically. And then you kind of keep going back and forth, and you can see as you get to the outer part of the log, the grain starts going almost on a 45-degree angle. And what I've learned is, for it to be classified as quarter sawn lumber, the grain has to be on a 60 to 90 degree angle to the width of the board. And then when you get to these outer parts, if it's anywhere between 30 and 60 degrees, like it will be out here kind of thing, that's what they refer to as rift sawn lumber. But having said all that, I'm not gonna get too much into technical details because I'm kind of new at this and I just want to give it a shot. So I'm gonna get this cherry log thrown up on the mill and go from there. Some of the advantages I've seen to quarter sawing versus just plain sawing is it gives a board more strength with the grains running vertically through the board. That makes it a lot less prone to cupping in the middle of the board. And the grain pattern's also a lot straighter, so it gives you a different look on the board than if you were to just plain saw it. So that's like a couple advantages, I guess. A couple disadvantages that I've read about is definitely that there's a lot more waste on the board. I think I read somewhere that it's between 20 and 30% more waste that you end up with quarter sawing compared to plain sawing. So that's probably one of the reasons why I'm not going to get too big into quarter sawing. I should never say never, I guess. As I learn more, maybe I'll change my opinion, but for now this is kind of just like an experiment that I'm doing. And the other downfall to quarter sawing, not so much for a sawyer, but if you have to buy it, it's a lot more expensive of a wood to buy. So that's a couple of the advantages and disadvantages I've read about. What I'm doing right now is I'm going to start this off as I would start off any log. I'm just trying to get the pith from end to end lined up. So my first pass I'm going to make right through the middle of the log here, so it's all lined up nice and level with the saw blade. Well, I got the log up on the bunks there, got her nice and straight, so I'm going to fire up the mill and make my first pass. So guys, I quickly found out that because this mill has 7-inch clearance, I can't make my first pass directly through the middle of the log like maybe some of the bigger sawmills would do. I don't think this is really, it won't really affect anything, but I'm gonna have to kind of, you know, square the log off first so that I can get into the middle of it, which I'm lucky that this log's the size it is because I can do that. If I got into a really big log, I think I'd have to kind of change my technique of what I'm doing here. So that's the first thing I've quickly learned already. But for this log, because it's within, I think, a couple inches of working, I'm just gonna kind of square the log off and then I'll go from there. Guys, that looks like it's going to give me the clearance I needed. So just got a little bit of a change on the fly from what I had planned at the start, but anyways, now I should be able to get my pass right through the middle. Alright guys, so I just want to make sure I'm being perfectly clear of why I had to cut this part off. It's because originally, you can see I was about to make my first pass right through the middle of the log here, but what ended up happening is because I only have, I think it's 7-inch clearance from the blade up to here, so I can only cut like a 7-inch piece between there. So what happened was when I went to make this pass, my mill was just running into the top of the log. So just as my own solution, I figured, you know, this board, you'd probably end up squaring something like that off of it anyways. So I just cut that off. So now my mill should be able to cut that halfway through the log all the way down now. That I think is going to work for this log. Obviously, if I had a lot bigger of a log, I wouldn't be able to do that. So I'm not good thinking on my feet right here of what I do, but maybe that'll be a video for another day if I get a lot bigger log and have to figure out how to quarter saw it. But for this one, this is what I'm gonna do. Gonna cut through the middle of this now and go from there. Guys, now I'll do the same idea, except the log's just up on its edge. I'm gonna have to take a couple inches off the top there so that I can drop it down, cut through the middle, and that'll give me my first 2 quarters. Alright guys, so I got the 1 quarter up on the sawmill here now. I think for the purposes of this video, this is the one that I'm going to focus on. So if I bring you down here back to my diagram, if you look at the bottom right diagram right there, it's kind of sitting the same way that the log is right now. So you can see that top board, which will be a board right here, it has the grain running vertical. So I'm going to take a 1-inch board off there. That'll be my first cut, and then I'm going to have to flip it around so that I can get a board off there. But I'm going to make this cut first, and then I'll flip it around to do the next one. First official quarter saw on board. Well, since I have to make my next cut here, with the setup that I have, I've been thinking about it. There probably is a way to do it, but the only way I can think of right now is to just square this side off so that I can have a straight edge for this to sit on so that I can get the cut there. If I was just to spin it so this was at the top, this round part would be along the bunks and up the side of my stops, so there would be no way for me to get it really square without going to a whole lot of trouble in my mind. So I think the easiest thing I can do is just square this side off so it can sit flat on the bunks, and then that'll make it a lot easier for me to turn in the log back and forth. Alright guys, I made that pass, and while I was making it, I actually think I had the brain, not a brainwave, but I remembered the way that you're supposed to do it, because I do have 2 square sides, so I should always be able to have the square side up on the bunk. So I'm lucky this is a small one that I think can do this by hand with, but you're supposed to flip it like this end over end. And then that gives me a square side to put up against the bunks like that. That was the proper way to do it. I'm glad I remembered. So now I can take another board off here that I believe would be quarter sawn. Again, I'm not getting out my protractor here or anything, but then if I get another board or two, it's bigger down at the other end, so if I get another board or two, that'll probably be the rift sawn that they talk about. But take this one off here now. Alright guys, I finished up moving that log back and forth, and here's what I ended up with out of the quarter of a log. Forget about this piece for right now, but I got these three that were quarter sawn, and then these two were kind of like right at the end, so I don't think they're really quarter sawn, but I'll use them for something anyways. So I'll leave those out of there for now. These three boards are quarter sawn to the best of my ability for my first attempt anyways. And then this one here is actually a board that I had plain sawed in the past, so I just pulled it out to see if there's much of a difference, and I think I can tell the difference. You can see like the grain patterns in this one that's plain sawed, like it's really like circular through the whole board, where you do get a little bit of it in this, but you can tell that in these boards the grain's a lot straighter. And they have said that cherry isn't the ideal wood to try this on, so I imagine it would be a lot more prominent in an oak that would have like a lot, you know, more noticeable of these circular grain patterns, I would think. And then when you flip it around like this, you get a lot more of the straight grain. So it's kind of neat, I think. I enjoyed doing it. I've still got the other 3/4 sitting on the ground here, but I think for the most part that will just be me repeating the same process again, so I don't really see the point in dragging you guys through all that again. But I thought that I would pull this piece out just to kind of show the difference. I think there is a bit of a difference, and if not a difference in the grain, it definitely does make the wood stronger. I can see the theory behind that with the grain running vertically, so maybe this stuff would be better to make something like a tabletop out of, in my opinion. So that's something I'll have to keep in mind. But anyways, I was kind of interested in trying to quarter saw my first ever log, and thought that'd be a great topic to bring you guys along with and see how I made out. I know there's a lot of people out there, not a lot, but there's some people out there that watch my videos that know a lot more about this stuff than I do. So if you've got any comments or advice for me, that would be greatly appreciated. Anyways, that's going to be it for me today. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you next time.